Good evening, dear viewers. Welcome on the evening edition of the English newscast on Reflect Afrique Television. Here are the headlines. Minister Paul Atanganji has over the weekend evaluated the work on the Pala Bridge in the far north region of the country, which collapsed weeks back. Gruesome attacks in northern Nigeria by the Islamic threat Boko Haram has left at least 43 people dead. Maradona's doctor is being investigated for manslaughter following the legend's death 4 days ago. This is all for the headlines. The details and more follow suit. Good evening and welcome back. The Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Atanganji, over the weekend evaluated the work on the Pala Bridge in the far north region, which collapsed in September. Accompanied by Minister Emmanuel Nganu Jumesi, the Public Works Boss, the pair were dispatched by the Head of State, President Paul Biya, and urged contractors to speed up work at the site to improve on lives of locals in the area by providing an alternative bridge in the days ahead. After the collapse of the bridge in September due to heavy downpour, the road linking Marua, Kusiri, and the neighboring Chad and Nigeria were inaccessible. The bridge, which is found on the National Road number 1, also links the Mayo Sava and the Logon and Shari divisions. Truck drivers and other road users have been left with no other option than taking a longer route and reconnecting with the main road before completing their journey. Among other things, the bridge was used for commercial purposes and work is said to only be fully completed in January 2021. The Cameroon Bar Council has commenced its planned strike action today, November 30th, 2020, by boycotting all its activities in all courts all over the national territory. This decision comes after the assaulting of lawyers in the Court of First Instance in Bonanjo on November 10th, 2020. Courts in the Wuri Division Littoral region have maintained a closed door since the early hours of today. Details coming up next with Sandrine Dumbe.
The doors of the Wuri Court of Appeal, that is the Bonanjo, Bonaberi and Dokoti Court, remain closed this Monday, November 30th, 2020. It is that lawyers registered with the Cameroon Bar will observe a suspension of the wearing of the black robe until December 4. This is one of the main resolutions taken after the meeting of the Bar Council Association on November 21 in Yaoundé in an extraordinary session under the leadership of Barrister Claire Atangana Bikuna, interim president of the Bar Council. In addition to the suspension of the wearing of the robe, the bar announces the suspension until further notice of any intervention by lawyers before courts ruling in criminal matters and at all levels of jurisdiction, including the Supreme Court, the jurisdictions ruling on electoral disputes, including the Constitutional Council. These decisions follow the recent abuses committed against lawyers in the country. In particular, the police violence at the Court of First Instance of Douala Bonanjo on November 10. Following the scuffles, 2 lawyers, Richard Tamfo and Amel Chemenge, were arrested, imprisoned in the Central Prison of Douala before being released. Despite the release, the lawyers maintained their mood swings because their wish is to find a definitive solution to the multiple obstacles to the exercise of this profession in Cameroon. They denounced the non-respect of lawyers in Cameroon by the judiciary, the army and the Cameroonian executive. Cameroonian lawyers say the protest, which is the second, will cripple the Cameroonian judiciary system and send a message to the executive, national and international community of the poor justice system where expert lawyers are abused.
The bodies of 13 people who died in a fire incident at Carrefour Sodi-Kotong in Guidé, north region of Cameroon on November 28 have been laid to rest, aged between 2 and 38. The victims of the unfortunate situation were roasted to death in their sleep at about 1 a.m., with only one victim surviving with serious injuries after he succeeded in escaping through the ceiling. The source of the fire is yet unknown. The victims leave behind unconsolable friends and family who blame a mosquito coil that was ablaze in the room, and others blame poor electrical connection for the incident. This Monday, November 30th, 2020, marks the 31st anniversary of the death of the first ever president of Cameroon, Amadou Ahidjo. And as he demanded, his remains is still yet to be brought to Cameroon. Sandrine Doumbé brings us history about our own president.
If God takes my life, I would like my remains to be taken back to Cameroon, he has suggested in a letter written on December 19, 1995 to the current head of state, Paul Biya. Exiled in July 1983 in Dakar, Senegal, after living in France, the father of the nation remains to this day in the Muslim cemetery of Yoff in the Senegalese capital. Wrongly or rightly accused of being behind the failed coup in 1984, the late Ahidjo was sentenced to death in absentia. November 30, 2020 makes exactly 31 years since Amadou Ahidjo died in Dakar, Senegal. The first president of Cameroon left the scene at the age of 65, just over 7 years after relinquishing power in favor of Paul Biya, the current head of state. After having ruled the country with an iron fist for 22 years, that is from 1960 to 1982, reducing the Maquis to nothing, the native of Gara decided in November 1982, when he was only 58 years old, to give way to the prime minister at the time, officially because of health issues. But 2 years after Mr. Biya took power, Mr. Ahidjo was accused of participating in the failed coup of April 6, 1984, and sentenced to death. Exiled first in France, the former president went to Dakar, where he died on November 30, 1989. 3 decades later, Mr. Ahidjo's remains are still buried in a crypt in the Senegalese capital. His wife, Germaine Ahidjo, and Paul Biya do not agree on the terms of his repatriation. The former First Lady believes that it is up to the current head of state to organize the return to Cameroon of the remains of his predecessor. Mr. Biya, for his part, thinks this decision belongs to the family of Amadou Ahidjo. In an interview on France 24 on October 30, 2007, in an interview on France 24 on October 30, 2007, Mr. Biya says the problem of repatriating the remains of the former president, in his opinion, is a family problem. He said if the family of his predecessors decide to transfer the remains of Ahidjo, he has no objection or observation to make.
That report from Sandrine Doumbé takes us to more than 43 farmers have been killed in what the Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari has described as an insane attack on the northeast Nigeria on Saturday. Details coming up next in this report from neighboring Nigeria. The killings, which took place in the early hours of Saturday, November 28, 2020, in the village of Koshobe and other rural communities in the Jere local government area near Maduguri, the capital of the conflict-hit Borno state. According to the United Nations Humanitarian Coordinator Edward Collon, armed men on motorcycles led a gruesome attack against farmers, men and women who were harvesting their crops in northeastern Nigeria, has left at least 43 people dead, with rising stating 7. Though there are yet to be claims on the attack, fingers are pointing at the Boko Haram and the Islamic State in West African province ISWAP, as they have carried out recent assaults on the population in the area. Both groups active in the region have succeeded in killing more than 30,000 people in the past decade during an armed campaign that has displaced some 2 million and has spread to neighboring countries including Niger, Chad and Cameroon. President Buhari's spokesperson in an address and condolence message stated that, "I condemn the killing of our hard-earned working farmers by terrorists in Borno State. The entire country is hurt by these senseless killings." In 2015, when Buhari assumed power, he promised to fix the security crisis, even though security analyst Suleiman Alede said many in the country are growing frustrated with the authorities' inability to contain the killings. Earlier on Sunday, the governor of the Borno state, Babagana Umara Zulum, told the press that at least 70 farmers were killed after attending the burial of 43 people whose bodies were recovered on Saturday. About 800 security forces were killed, mostly in the first half of 2019, and the Nigerian military responded by changing its strategy, introducing what they call the super camp strategy, by which they withdraw soldiers from remote communities and rural areas and consolidated them in what they call super camps in order to reduce military fatalities. People in the region live in extreme fear amid the prolonged crisis, which has led to so much displacement and destruction of livelihood. Argentina's prosecutors are investigating Diego Maradona's doctor for possible manslaughter following his death 4 days ago. Even though Dr. Luke has not been charged, police in Buenos Aires have searched the house and the clinic of Leopoldo Luke as they try to establish if there was negligence in Maradona's treatment following his surgery. Some 30 police officers raided the deceased doctor's residence earlier yesterday, November 29th, with a different set of 20 searching his clinic for evidence after his daughters demanded more details about his father's medication. The 60-year-old died of a heart attack at his home where he was recuperating. Maradona had had a successful operation on a blood clot earlier in November and had been due to be treated for alcohol dependency. The Senegalese Football Federation announced on Sunday evening the death of Papa Bouba Diop at the age of 42 following a long illness. The former midfielder had played for Lens in the 2000s. Senegal mourns Papa Bouba Diop. The Terriant Lions striker will go down in history as the first Senegalese scorer in the history of the World Cup against France, then reigning World Cup champion. During the opening match of the 2002 World Cup in Seoul, he pierced the cages of Fabien Barthez, offering victory to his team. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with that sad sport note that we end this edition. Thanks once more for staying tuned. We keep the rendezvous tomorrow for another edition of this English newscast. Good evening once more.